Hello, your Uncle Spurt here, and this charming wee bugger is Samsung's fresh new Galaxy S25 flagship phone. It's the most affordable of Sammy's new S25 series, starting from £799, and also by far the most compact. So you'll have more cash to spend on the weekly booze shop and more room in your pants for whatever you'd like to put in your pants. Now I've been getting nice and cozy with Samsung's mini blower, so here's a lovely wee video about my first 24 hours with the Galaxy S25. I should have waited another hour and then made it my first 25 hours with the Galaxy S25. Alright, bollocks to it, I'll have another go at unclogging the toilet, that should kill another hour. So here's a lovely wee video about my first 25 hours with the Galaxy S25, and for more on the latest and greatest tech, please do poke subscribe and ding that notifications bell. Cheers! So first of all, what do you actually get stuffed in the box besides your fresh new spangly Galaxy S25? Well, the answer, as usual, is sadly not very much. You've basically got a quick start guide, you've got your Type-C to Type-C USB charging cable, and you've got your wee pokey pin SIM jobby. And that's it. As usual, a bugger all adapter stuffed in there, but I think Samsung took that out about 2 or 3 generations ago now, so not really much of a shock. Gotta say though, I am rather digging the new box art. I'm kind of getting Hitchcockian noir thriller vibes from it. So now on to the Galaxy S25 itself, and I can't even begin to emote just how pleasantly refreshing it is to have something this dinky and lightweight clutched in my hands. Having just reviewed the likes of Honor's Magic 7 Pro and the OnePlus 13 and another phone which I definitely cannot mention on camera right now because it's still under embargo for a couple of weeks. And the S25 is just like, it's like being on holiday in Barbados after being stuck in Plymouth all month. Yeah, it's just 6.2 inches, that display, and as you can see they're surrounded by very skinny bezels indeed. Let's just put a lighter wallpaper on so you can really see. This right here is the default Galaxy S25 one, certainly for this mint model. Got to say I prefer my nerdy, geeky anime shenanigans. And unfortunately, Samsung has once again gone with those iPhone-esque, completely flat edges, which I personally am certainly not a fan of. I prefer a few more curves in there just to make it more comfortable to clutch, but thankfully the Galaxy S25 is so dinky that it's really not uncomfortable anyway. One-handed use is easy enough. You do have the old one-handed mode as well if you need it. And that frame is once again constructed from Samsung's Armor aluminium, or aluminum if you happen to be American or just can't be bothered with all of those eyes. And you've got a bit of Victus 2 up front and around the back as well, so drop resistant and also highly scratch resistant. Well, there's no pre-installed screen protector, and I would be tempted to chuck one on there just to make sure it stays in tip-top shape. You've got a choice of 4 pretty decent colours for the S25, navy, icy blue, mint and silver shadow. And that moody navy finish and this here mint model, definitely my favourites of the 4. As you can see, they're quite a subtle shade, but nice and bright, very easy on the eye. And you've got the usual matte finish as well, so hopefully it won't get too smudgy. Samsung served up some very saucy Korean chicken burgers at the Unpacked event in London last night. I might have had a couple while I was setting up the S25, and let me tell you, by the end of that, this thing looked like roadkill. But a quick dab with a napkin and it was looking box fresh again. So yeah, decent selection of new colours. It's a little bit slimmer than before, nice and lightweight and compact as always. The perfect antidote to all these tablet-like behemoths I've had to cram into my jeans recently. And hey, that dynamic AMOLED 2X display might be quite dinky at just 6.2 inches, but I still find it perfectly comfortable for kicking back with a bit of Netflix, as well as YouTube, all that good stuff. As always, that contrast is on point. Nice, deep, dark blacks. You got full HDR10 streaming support in the likes of Netflix, but bugger all Dolby Vision as usual. And standard fare for the colours as well, which are really bright and poppy. Certainly on the default vivid mode, but you can switch that up in the display settings, knock it down to more natural output if you prefer. Now, sadly, you don't have that anti-reflective Gorilla Armor 2 coating like you get with the Ultra, so it is a very reflective, very shiny display as always. But if you boost the brightness all the way up, you'll find that this counters glare pretty well. Although no, it's certainly not one of the brightest displays that I've worked with. You've got all the usual eye comfort mode shenanigans on here, and also the ability to make the screen extra dim if you like. Although when you chuck that brightness all the way down, the screen is so dim that I can't actually see the extra dim setting. I think that's it. Unfortunately, Samsung hasn't commented on any PWM dimming smarts here on the Galaxy S25, which leads me to believe it's the same panel as last year's S24, i.e. if you are sensitive to OLED flicker in lower light, you might want to look elsewhere. As for the Galaxy S25's built-in stereo speakers, no noticeable improvement over the old S24. The clarity stays strong even when you boost up to the maximum levels, respectable-ish bass, but certainly not particularly loud. So if you're trying to hear in a noisy environment, you might struggle. So not much change at all when it comes to the design and the display tech versus the older Galaxy S24, but Samsung has chucked Qualcomm's fresh new Snapdragon 8 Elite chipset in this bad boy, while also mercifully boosting the RAM count to 12 gigs, so that's now in line with the Plus and Ultra models. And yes, that tasty combination of that 8 Elite platform and buckets of RAM means that OneUI 7 runs absolutely beautifully smoothly. And if you want to get gaming on the likes of Wuthering Waves, well, that runs at a perfectly fluid 60 frames per second, even with all those graphics settings maxed right out. And I got to admit, I was a wee bit worried that the likes of Wuthering Waves on those highest graphics settings might make the Galaxy S25 a wee bit toasty. It does have a bigger vapor chamber than the previous S24, it's now 15% larger. And these more compact handsets can sometimes struggle when it comes to the heat dissipation. And while the S25 certainly got a wee bit toasty when I was downloading all of the Wuthering Waves files originally, thankfully once I actually got into the game, it didn't get any more than slightly, nicely, pleasantly warm. Even after well over a full hour of sprinting about the place, punching various creatures in the face for no good reason other than it made me feel better, the S25 was still performing beautifully well, and hadn't even begun to singe my fingertips. And oh my god, Samsung has finally sorted out the bloody gaming mode on this thing as well. You no longer have to drag down the notifications and everything to activate this. You just have to pull out this dinky wee bar here. This has all of the usual features packed in there. So for instance, you've got the touch booster, touch protection. You can take a screenshot, record the action, block the auto brightness, which I recommend because I did notice the screen was dimming down quite a lot while I was playing Genshin Impact, not if that was an attempt by the phone to prevent overheating. You can also block Byyyyyeeeee, which I would just generally recommend doing anyway. And of course, you've got your game optimization as well. So if you tap this wee cog here, you can choose the most appropriate game optimization modes. Obviously got Wuthering Waves in performance, but you've got balanced and battery saver for less demanding games. You've also got customizations for individual games, where you can select, again, the game optimization modes. You can select the frames per second, the screen resolution, and you can also turn on the old frame booster. You can also choose the refresh rate for your games, as you can see there, switching it from 60 Hz to 120 Hz. And I did try switching on the frame booster and 120 Hz refresh for Wuthering Waves, but didn't notice any difference in that frame rate. Stayed perfectly fluid, but not noticeably more than 60 frames per second. And if you want to, you can even revert back to the old notifications setup, but yeah, the hell with that. And yes, you've also got the usual pop-up apps shenanigans as well, so you can get a bit of YouTube on the go if you're stuck in a particular bit. Just search for the mission or level or whatever you're on, and you can watch yourself a walkthrough without having to minimize the game. Wish I had all this stuff in the bloody ZX Spectrum days. Good old Manic Miner probably wouldn't have been quite so much of a twat. Now when it comes to the storage on the regular Galaxy S25, Samsung has unfortunately been a wee bit stingy, because the base model here comes with just 128 gigs still. And in 2025, that is all kinds of pathetic, really, because look, I've had this thing for a day and already I've used up half of that storage space. That's pretty much just good old Wuthering Waves by itself. And considering there's bugger all microSD memory card support on this thing as well, that's just pants, frankly. Luckily, Samsung does also offer the Galaxy S25 in 256 gig and 512 gig flavors, but naturally, you'll have to spunk up more cash if you want a bit of that. Oh, and Samsung has also skipped out on the ultra-wideband tech for the regular S25. You'll only find that in the Plus and the Ultra models. So if you want to use your phone to unlock your poncy new Tesla, tough tits. And sadly, there's been no change when it comes to the battery tech for the Galaxy S25 versus last year's flagship model. Now, it's once again a 4,000 mAh capacity cell stuffed inside of that compact chassis, which really is starting to sound pretty meager compared with a lot of flagship rivals these days, which are pushing the 6,000 mAh barrier. I was really hoping Samsung would switch it up to a bit of silicon carbon tech for the S25 series, which is what a lot of rivals are using. Not only is it more environmentally friendly, but you can generally pack higher capacity batteries into more compact dimensions. And of course, it would be a wee bit premature of me to start banging on about the battery life of the Galaxy S25 after fondling it for just 24 hours. But the good news is it does seem to be a wee bit better than the Galaxy S24 thanks to the general energy efficiency of that 8 Elite and OneUI 7. Gaming doesn't absolutely hammer it the way that it did on the S24, so you should be able to get about 5 full hours of Wuthering Waves action on a full charge of this thing. And likewise, the battery drain doesn't seem to be much more than a trickle when you're just, browsing the web or streaming a bit of video or whatever. So here's hoping it'll actually comfortably last a full day on a single charge, but you have to stay tuned for my in-depth S25 review for all that shenanigans. But yes, sadly, there's been sod all changes when it comes to the battery charging speeds either. Once again, Galaxy S25 about as nippy as a one-legged sloth with a bag on its head. Although I do always enjoy how Samsung describes the 25-watt charging as super fast charging. Whereas in truth, it takes the best part of 2 bloody hours to power this thing back up again when you bung a cable in it. You do have Qi 2 wireless charging support now, so you can expect a plethora of fancy pants magnetic wireless charging stands to emerge for this thing imminently. And on the software side, I'm very much enjoying a bit of OneUI 7 here on the Galaxy S25, with the usual caveat that it's got some of those Samsung quirks chucked in there. Some of the changes immediately apparent, like the fact that the notifications panel and the control center now completely separate, but you can flick between the two quickly and easily, like so. But I don't think anyone will be particularly shocked to learn that most of the new features in OneUI 7 are AI based. So for instance, you've got the Now Brief, which can give you any weather warnings, traffic warnings if you happen to be commuting, you've got something in town, calendar events, and also can even recommend some music to play to get you in the mood for whatever you're up to. So far, these seem like completely generic playlist recommendations, not at all based on your listening habits. But of course, again, haven't spent much time with the S25. Hopefully, it'll be a bit more tailored when it gets to know me. Like, maybe don't recommend soothing orchestral stuff, maybe a bit more heavy metal, please. And you've also got the context-sensitive AI Select. So for instance, if you're watching a random YouTube video or something, you can draw a wee circle around it, and then you can quickly and easily create a GIF from that video. Start recording. You can record up to 15 seconds, as you can see there, and then stop when you're done. And then boom, you got yourself a GIF or a GIF or however the you want to say it. Likewise, Circle to Search has been improved now. So for instance, if you're watching a video, you can use Circle to Search to identify any music that's playing on it. This also comes in handy if you're just enjoying a random mix on your phone. You've got no idea what the individual tracks are. And frankly, there's enough AI shindiggery stuffed away in the Galaxy S25 to choke a beluga whale. But I'm not going to bang on about every individual element in this video, because I am actually already working on a Galaxy S25 series tips and tricks with all the best new features packed in there, stuff you should really try out if you're going to buy yourself one of these mini marvels. So stay tuned for a bit of all that. Poke subscribe and ding that notifications bell, I guess you don't miss out on it. Whoa. And again, it's early days, just 24 hours, but so far the Galaxy S24 has been behaving itself, no real balky behavior, but I did mention the usual Samsung quirks and foibles, like for instance, doubling up on pretty much everything Android already offers, including the likes of an app store, the internet, browser, good old Samsung Pay, Bixby. And you got some crapware stuffed on here as well, the likes of LinkedIn and Facebook, which you just don't seem to be able to avoid these days, although thankfully very easily gotten rid of. Off you piss, Facebook. And so let's finish this early 24 hours with the Galaxy S25 type video shenanigans with a squint at the old camera tech. And would you absolutely fall backwards off your chair in shock and surprise if I told you that the camera hardware hadn't really changed up at all versus the old S24? So you got yourself your 50 megapixel primary shooter, your basic 12 megapixel ultra wide angle shooter, no ultra style upgrade here for the regular Galaxy S25. And then you've also got yourself a 10 megapixel telephoto shooter. And camera UI has changed up slightly for the Galaxy S25 series, so now you can drag out all your various settings and toggles right here at the bottom of the app. Now that's considerably more convenient for a bit of one-handed play, so you can quickly toggle on the flash, you can change up the aspect ratio, switch on the timer, turn on the 50 meg high resolution mode. Bit of the old motion photo, of course. And Samsung actually allows you to create your own filter in the Galaxy S25 series in OneUI 7 based off of any other photo you've already got on the device. So here I'm creating a moody crimson type effort. You can of course adjust the color temperature, the contrast, the saturation levels and everything to get it just the way you want it. And then boom, there's our freshly filtered photo. And of course, got all the usual bonus camera modes, including a bit of portrait action. You can now tweak that effect strength, choose from a variety of different studio effects, of course. You've got the obligatory Pro mode, which allows you to tweak the likes of the ISO levels, EV, the focus, the white balance, and all the usual Samsung shenanigans, including the obligatory food mode, the single take. You've got the night mode, although if you're in just standard regular photo mode, it will automatically apply the likes of the night mode when needed. And here's a handful of early samples pumped out by the Galaxy S25, and so far seems business as usual. The scene optimizer is switched off by default, and so colors are close to realistic, although I have already seen some saturation in natural daylight. The telephoto shooter is handy for getting closer to your subject and can spaff out some good looking portrait snaps when the focus behaves itself. But this zoom solution isn't as reliable as rivals from Oppo, Xiaomi, etc. if that subject won't bloody keep still. The ultra wide angle sensor seems to be fine. You get similar tones if not quite as much finer detail as the primary shooter. And you will see a lot of noise when using that zoom and the ultra wide angle lens in lower light. And you got loads of editing tools chucked on here as well, including best shot, basically, but for Galaxy. And as usual, the S25 can smartly identify any annoying human type things that are lurking in your photo and get right rid of them. Generally works pretty well. That generative fill is getting spookily good, though we did miss one wee background lurker here. But another feature that's changed up for the S25 series is the Pro Video mode, because as you can see there, you can now shoot in log if you're going to actually go to the trouble of fully professionally editing your videos before uploading them. You've now got 10-bit HDR smarts on here as well, and as usual you can shoot up to 8K resolution footage at 30 frames per second, otherwise 4K at 30 or 60 FPS. Again, here's some sample footage from my first 24 hours, and the 4K footage has come out well during the day at least. Nice sharp visuals, clear audio, and as always, excellent stabilization. I do appreciate the smooth zoom action as well as the near seamless transition between the different lenses, and that focus seems to do its job, no awkward popping to speak of so far. However, at night time, the picture quality doesn't seem to have improved that much at all, despite Samsung's claims, with plenty of noise on display when you're shooting general scenes. And yes, you also have the new audio eraser tool. So for instance, here's that video that I shot last night walking back from the King's Cross Unpacked event. If we tap the wee star icon, bring up the audio eraser tool, it'll analyze any background sound. You can then try and eliminate any background crowd sounds, etc. by using this little slider. Reduce the wind noise as well. I've got to admit, so far this doesn't seem to be as good as the equivalent on Google's Pixel smartphones. I've noticed it doesn't seem to make much of an impact to background crowd noises, other people talking all around you. And if you lean a bit too hard on those sliders, it can actually make the overall audio a bit crackly and cack. But anyway, here's two side-by-side comparisons so you can see for yourself.
Ultra HD video, 4K resolution, shot at 60 frames per second. Ultra HD video, 4K resolution, shot at 60 frames per second.
And then, as always, Samsung has slapped a 12 megapixel selfie camera on the front end of the Galaxy S25. Using this, you can shoot up to 4K Ultra HD footage at 30 or 60 frames per second, so exactly what you would expect from a flagship smartphone. Stabilization seems solid as always, that audio pickup nice and clear as well, so no complaints there. However, as you can see, this nighttime footage that I shot when stumbling back from the Samsung Unpacked event last night, not quite as crispy, pretty grainy, noisy visuals overall. And there you have it, my lovelies. That's my unboxing and first 24 hours impression of the Galaxy S25. As you can see, not much upgraded there in terms of the hardware, certainly compared with the old S24. Some, but not all of those AI features will be coming to the S24 as well. But of course, some of them are reliant on the Snapdragon 8 Elite Smarts and the extra 4 gigs of RAM. That's my early thoughts on the game and chops, the camera tech and everything, but stay tuned for my in-depth review of the Galaxy S25. I'm going to slap my SIM in this bad boy and fully review it once I've done the Galaxy S25 Ultra, which my SIM is currently residing inside of. Stay tuned for that OneUI 7 and S25 tips and tricks video for a closer look at all of the AI and the best new bits stuffed in there. If there's any particular phones you'd like me to compare the Galaxy S25 or the S25 Ultra side by side with, well, definitely let me know down in the comments below, and just let me know your general thoughts so far. Are you tempted by the S25? If you've already got the S24, I'd say there's very little reason to upgrade, but certainly if you've got an earlier model or your phone is just cack, you might well be tempted indeed, especially if you want something that's dinky and yet still a proper beefcake. Please do box subscribe, ding that notifications bell for more on the latest and greatest tech, and have yourselves a ruddy, wonderful rest of the week. Cheers everyone, love you.